What's up guys, my name is Ace, and today we're going to be taking a deep look at strafing in the Call of Duty franchise, because I feel like this is often a very underrated mechanic in the game when it comes to gunfights as well as overall gameplay pacing. When it comes to this, people are typically focused on aim down sight time, sprint out time, recoil, time to kill, all of those things, which of course are important, but strafing is often forgotten, and that's why I want to bring it up in today's video. And diving right into this, I chose a selection of Call of Duty games from COD 4 all the way up to Vanguard. I didn't test every single game, but I tried to at least spread it out a little bit so there's a decent selection here, and I also chose only boots on the ground Call of Duty games. And with this, I just found the Strafe Speeds for a normal assault rifle and a normal SMG in these games, so we can see how Strafe Speeds have evolved over time with the franchise. And let's just start this off with assault rifles, and you'll notice there's two lines here. The blue line is the base strafe speed, so with no attachments or perks that help improve our aim walking movement speed. Whereas with the red line, we have our strafe potential, and this is with the attachments that help specifically with aim walking movement speed, or in the case of Modern Warfare 3, the stalker perk, which helps with our aim walking movement speed. And as we can see here, I was actually quite surprised by these results. Our base strafe speed with assault rifles has actually been steadily increasing since COD 4. And then our strafe potential has also increased pretty considerably from back in those days. However, we'll notice there's a pretty big slump with Modern Warfare 2019 because we didn't have very many options to improve our strafe speed in that game. It was typically just one stock attachment for most guns that would help with our aim walking movement speed, and that was it. But overall, in general, like I said, I was quite surprised to see these results because I often see people claiming that strafe speeds have been getting worse and worse, especially with the past few Call of Duty games. And that doesn't really appear to be the case, although I could definitely see an argument for that with Modern Warfare 2019's strafe speed potential if you're trying to create that sort of maximum strafe speed build. Now, having said that, I can't help but think that this just doesn't match my in-game experience. Even in Vanguard, which is apparently head and shoulders above other Call of Duty games like Modern Warfare 3 and Black Ops 2, I never really felt as though strafing was as effective as those games in gunfights, and part of that is of course due to the really fast time to kill in Vanguard when you factor attachments in. But another factor that I didn't initially consider is the shooting penalty to your movement speed. This is a mechanic that didn't normally exist, at least for assault rifles and SMGs in older Call of Duty games, and as far as I can tell, it looks like they started toying with this with Black Ops 4, and that's been carrying through and actually increasing ever since then. So now let's have a look at this same graph, but while firing our gun, which is very important if we're looking at strafing effectiveness in the middle of a gunfight, because obviously you're going to be shooting your gun in that scenario. And when we do this, you can see a lot more of a flattening effect here, and especially with Vanguard, this is the big standout. Our strafe speed potential is no longer head and shoulders above everything else. It's now actually worse than Modern Warfare 3, Black Ops 2, and even Black Ops 4. So I think this is a big factor that explains why strafing doesn't feel as effective in a gunfight in newer Call of Duty games compared to the old Call of Duty games where we didn't have this shooting movement speed penalty. Now, I should make a mention here, in Vanguard, you can mitigate this by using the Dauntless perk, or even the steady proficiency helps a little bit, but the Dauntless perk is what helps the most with this. But that does require you to use up one of your valuable perk slots just to make it so your attachments actually work the way you want them to work. So those are the assault rifles. Now let's move on to the SMGs, and as we can see here, without shooting our gun, we're actually seeing a generally downward trend when it comes to our base strafe speed, and then our strafe potential follows this pretty closely, with the two exceptions being Black Ops 2 and Vanguard, where that gap is increased because we have a lot of strafe speed potential with those. So with this weapon class, it is accurate to say that strafe speeds have been getting a bit slower over time. However, once again, we do have a very solid strafe potential in Vanguard as well as Cold War, but let's once again factor in that shooting movement speed penalty to our aim down sight strafe speeds. And this now firmly solidifies this downward trend when it comes to our strafe speeds in a gunfight when we're actively shooting back at enemy players. And it's actually a very noticeable drop here. And this is the weapon class that traditionally would dominate with strafing, and that just isn't really the case anymore, at least in a gunfight while shooting our gun. So all things considered, especially when you factor in that shooting movement speed penalty, which is necessary if we're looking at strafing in a gunfight, it would be accurate to say that strafing in a gunfight has generally been getting less effective over time. And personally, I'm not the biggest fan of this because I feel like having a good aim down sight strafe speed potential, especially with SMGs, That's an important tool in an aggressive player's arsenal for properly countering the more defensive playstyles or the campers out there. And I have said this a bunch in the past, I feel with Modern Warfare 2019, the balance was far more in favor of defensive playstyles compared to aggressive playstyles. And one of the reasons for this, not the whole reason, but at least one of the reasons for this, is due to the fact that our aim down sight strafe speed potential isn't very great, which effectively eliminates that tool in an aggressive player's arsenal. And I feel this is one of the big reasons that slide canceling became so popular and prominent in those games. Since we didn't have the ability to strafe quickly in a gunfight, we may as well take advantage of any exploit possible that gives us that movement advantage over a stationary player. And for me, I did mention this in a video yesterday where I was focusing on slide canceling. I would rather not have slide canceling exist and instead focus more on bringing back that great aim down sight strafe speed potential in a gunfight while firing your gun, in order to achieve better playstyle balance, where aggressive players have that tool available if they kit out their gun specifically for that aim down sight strafe speed. And this would also bring back more interesting gunfights in general, I feel. In older Call of Duty games, if you took advantage of strafing in a gunfight, you're trying to evade enemy shots while still maintaining your aim on target while he's possibly doing the same thing to you. I just feel like that makes for a much more interesting gunfight than two players just standing stationary because the moment they fire their gun, they're effectively locked in place and just shooting back and forth at each other. That's not very interesting, that's not very dynamic, and that further encourages and rewards players for just sitting behind a piece of cover, pre-aiming and waiting for a target to come out in the open. If they were to focus on improving these strafe speeds, I think it also gives them a lot more control over the balance between those two playstyles, because you can easily keep strafing in check in many ways. If strafing ends up becoming too powerful, you can easily tone that down by reducing your aiming stability as you increase your strafe speed with attachments. That means that you could still strafe really effectively in close quarters gunfights, and that would help you a lot, but for longer ranges, if you have a strafe speed build, you're going to have a lot of idle sway with your gun. It's going to be moving around a lot, and you're not going to have that same sort of accuracy at range. There are so many ways that they can properly balance this and keep this in check that I feel are far superior and make for much more interesting gunfight dynamics than the current slide cancel meta in Modern Warfare 2019 as well as Warzone. So if it were up to me, I'd actually completely eliminate that shooting movement speed penalty, at least for SMGs and assault rifles. I totally understand that with LMGs or marksman rifles, things like that, because those are designed to be more stationary. But for the guns that are designed to use mobility to their advantage, I feel players should be able to take full advantage of that mobility, even in a gunfight, without having to use one of your valuable perk slots in order to do that as well. If you stack with attachments to improve your strafe speed, you shouldn't also have to stack with a perk like Dauntless in Vanguard, for instance, just to be able to take advantage of the attachments you put on your gun. And with that, that's going to wrap it up for today's video on the evolution of strafe speeds in Call of Duty. And this is where I want to hear from you guys in those comments down below. First up, were you guys surprised by any of the results that I presented here today? And second, what do you think about the idea of improving our strafe speed potential, especially while firing our guns, going forward for Call of Duty? Do you like the fact that in recent Call of Duty games, basically the moment you pull your trigger, you're essentially locking your feet in place? Or do you like having that ability to try to evade shots while strafing and aiming down sight? Just let me know all of those thoughts down below. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated. And don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.